was a lot of things that I had to realize was a necessity to life as a man, such as emotion. I didn't realize how much I didn't show emotions until I got married.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Dog House.
Yo, what up?
What up? We got a dope episode for y'all today. We're gonna talk about some real Dog House type stuff. So of course, you know, we got myself, Manny Pierre, Southern Kings Photography is in the building.
Alright, and then you know what I'm saying, it's your boy GK Tutter, aka Garrett 2.0. On social media, you can find me at GK Films Official. That's GK Films with a Z. Or just head over to my website, gkfilms.com, for booking information. You dig?
Nice. It's your boy Chima. What up?
What's going on, y'all? This is Mr. Carter. Hope everybody being safe out there. Take care of themselves.
Hey, what up? This is your boy Curtis, music producer, entrepreneur. You can find me at Curtis C. Rogers on all
Social media.
You can find me at Curtis C. Rogers on all social media platforms.
We ain't gonna edit that one either.
Whatever. Let's go.
All right, so we got a few hot topics that we're gonna talk about right now. All right, so first of all, let's talk about a buzzword that we've been hearing a lot in 2020, and that is toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. What y'all think about toxic masculinity? First of all, what is toxic masculinity?
Yo, so toxic masculinity is a very narrow description of manhood. You know what I'm saying? And it states basically that being a man is defined by violence, sex, status, and aggression. You know what I'm saying? It's this cultural idea where manliness is equal to strength and emotions is equal to weakness. And that's what the definition of toxic masculinity is, at least from the standpoint of everything that I've been looking at. You know what I mean?
Right. And I've been coming across the same thing. Basically, like you just said, it's basically the concept of if you show any kind of emotions, then you're being weak. And in order to really be a man, you gotta overcompensate in your masculinity in order to be a man. So, with that being said, so what do y'all think about toxic masculinity? All right, let me rephrase that. How much masculinity is the appropriate amount of masculinity? At what point does it become toxic?
That's a real good question. I'll go first. So, being raised by a man's man who is my dad, and don't get me wrong, I love my father, but he was a man's man, so it was just like, you know, he ain't put no lotion on. I was considered, kind of, feminine or whatever like that. So it was just like.
Oh, so you gotta be ashy to be a man.
Hey, Curtis dad gonna be watching this episode.
He's probably not gonna see this, but
hopefully he does see it.
Hopefully he put some lotion on.
Pop.
But
I did it like that.
My dad was a man's man, so when I got older, I had to
put lotion on.
I had to realize that lotion was not feminine. It was actually a necessity of life.
Yeah.
But
that you use it on other areas of your skin.
It was a lot of things that I had to realize was a necessity to life as a man, such as emotion. I didn't realize how much I didn't show emotions until I got married. And my wife, she really let me know, like, bruh, you have an issue with showing emotion. Wow. And it's because, like, growing up, and look, I'm not blaming my dad. He taught us what he knew, so it's just like, but like when I got married, I had to realize that you cannot be in a healthy relationship unless you tell your emotions, unless you say how you feel. You can't bottle things up all the time because they're gonna come out.
Indeed.
They're gonna come out. So
one way or another.
so it's just like you have to find a way to express your emotions, and for a man, it oftentimes, especially in past relationships, you find that it's not received well as a man. So what we do is we bottle up. We bottle up to protect ourselves.
But let me ask you a question, Sean. Do you feel like, where do you feel the toxicity was in on that? I mean, I personally, I feel like most definitely there is a such thing as toxic masculinity, no doubt, right? However, I feel like in true, I don't want to say American fashion, but it's probably led by, this ideology right here in the States. You give somebody an inch, they want to take them out. At some point, it's like, where do you draw the line at? What's toxic and what's not toxic? I seen once upon a time somebody was like, oh man, you can grow a beard. Everybody can't grow a beard, man. That's toxic. You know what I'm saying? Or you gotta have like, whoa, hey man, the things that define me as a man is now being labeled toxic. Perfect example. Pharrell Williams. Yo, Pharrell, I like your music. Really don't care what you think about me and what I'm about to say right now. I'm not knocking you, but you is not going to redefine what masculinity is by saying, oh, yo, I'm wearing a dress and this is the new masculine. There you go. I got a problem with that. There you go. I really do. Because, it's like, where do we draw the line of what's toxic and what's just being a man?
Well, let me hop in there real quick.
Go ahead.
So what I think is, obviously, we all have our own experiences. We all have our own mindsets. So when you look at toxic masculinity, it has to deal with perception. Whether it's your perception, his perception, her perception. And so to me, how you combat that is by being comfortable in your skin. It's going to look different to different people. I'm an emotional being. I have no problem kind of expressing my emotion. And part of that is because I believe myself to be a man and a man's man. So when you're comfortable within yourself, you don't really worry about what other people think necessarily. You're able to just go out, be you. If people think you soft, let them try you and get these hands. Right. And get these hands.
I definitely agree with that, but I think that this sentiment is coming from other people looking at people saying that masculinity is toxic or whatever. So it's other people that's defining your masculinity as being toxic or or not enough or whatever the case may be.
So for instance, when going back to the emotional thing, like when you talk about not enough masculinity, in past relationships when I would show emotion, I would often get called weak. And it was just like, because I was trying to come up out of a state that I was in where it was just like, don't show emotion at all, to showing emotion. And every time I did that, you get called weak. So then it's just like, you know what, this emotion stuff is obviously not for me, because every time I do something like that, I get shut out. So of course you close up. So it's just like, there is a such thing as toxic masculinity, no doubt. But the definition is so broad, you always put anything in there.
It is very subjective.
Exactly.
And it changes from person to person.
Right.
And like you said, sometimes it can be, like you said, if a man shows too much emotion, then women would think that he's weak and that he, not being a man. Right. But then when he switch up, you being toxic now.
Exactly. So it's like, what's the definition? Who made the definition, and what rules do we follow when it comes to toxic masculinity?
And let me say this before we continue on. I think that the word toxic is probably the most overused word in 2020. Everything in 2020 was toxic. That was just toxic.
Accountability is the most underused word.
Speak about it.
Wow. Don't get mad at me.
Why you really feel, Curtis?
It's true.
So what is that line then? Where's that line that when you cross this point, now you're being toxic? As far as what manliness and manhood and masculinity.
Well, I think it comes to like the golden rule: treat people how you want to be treated, and ultimately that's what it is. I don't think anybody gets to define how a man is, and I think when we overuse the word toxic, we're just using that word control. It's a form of control, how we think people are supposed to act. But people aren't born on a linear continuum. We are like, we're made to be different. So everybody.
Deep down in what
So what I don't get about this whole toxic masculinity thing is, as a man, I don't think non-males can tell how they're supposed to act. You know what I mean?
You said non-males, you should have just said females.
No, I mean, but other
Be
kids, you don't get to tell a man how like they're supposed to carry themselves as men. You know what I mean? Like if you say, because the truth is, like there's good and there's bad. No matter if you're a man or a woman or what, or in between or whatever, or transgender, whatever you want to call it. It's good and bad. But things that are germane to men should be the one who define that. Because we know who we are biologically and psychologically.
But see, there's certain characteristics that I feel like has been attacked, right? In this whole toxic masculinity conversation, right? Things such as if a man wants to be respected, the man gotta get the respect.
And that's exactly what I'm saying.
You know what I'm saying?
That's exactly what I'm saying.
You're too competitive.
It's a form of control.
You know what I'm saying? Or even if a man wants to go to the gym and lift weights, you know what I'm saying, and be physically strong, like this type of stuff.
Or a man doesn't want his son to wear a dress.
Right. There's nothing wrong with. There's nothing absolutely wrong with a man having certain. Let me see. What's the best way I can say it? I'm not even trying to be politically correct, but there's nothing wrong with a man having a certain image for his children. Like, you know what I'm saying? There's nothing wrong with that. Right. And so if a man say, here's an example that I feel like is crossing the line and not crossing the line. Okay. Right? When it comes to a man and his son. If a man says, my son is not allowed to wear a dress. Oh, that's toxic. That's not toxic. That's not toxic if a man say his son is not allowed to wear a dress. I feel like you get toxic when you say, if my son is gay, then I'm gonna disown him.
That's exactly what it is. That's toxic.
That's toxic.
But if you have rules in your household, like the way that I raise and how I operate my life don't make me toxic. It's just a matter of preference. Right. But I was looking up some things that harmful concept of masculinity. It says strength, lack of emotion, self-sufficiency, dominance, sexual virility. And I might have to look up that word because virility. It's virility, y'all. My bad, virility.
This to me sounds like people who got a problem with men in general. That's me. So would y'all agree that maybe the number one fan of this would be feminism?
Right, and that's been a big like the other side of it, and a lot of people say that it is the feminist movement that actually, I guess identified, but it actually puts in the whole idea of toxic masculinity. So it goes contrary, or I guess hand in hand with feminism.
Can feminism be toxic?
Oh, of course. But see, that goes into anything. Anything can be toxic.
Right.
So it's not like, so people talk about toxic masculinity as if there's anything and everything on this earth that can be toxic. So it's not. It's not.
Drink too much water. That's toxic.
Exactly. So it's not toxic masculinity. It is men
that are toxic.
Right. There you go.
There's so many men on the earth who are not toxic. There's no such thing as toxic masculinity. There are men who are toxic. There's no such thing as toxic.
We need the organ.
There's women who take it overboard. Like you have conservatives and they have the hard right.
Right.
Far right.
Far right. You have liberals and you have the far left. Liberals and conservatives are not toxic. There are some people inside of that group who are toxic. Those people are separated as you have far left and far right. So why don't they have the same thing when it comes to men and masculinity? Why is this not a separate group for people who are toxic?
For me personally, and I'm gonna end it with this. I ain't got nothing else to say after this. When it comes down to toxic masculinity, just stop attacking things that make a man a man. You know what I'm saying? Don't be like, you know what I mean? Oh, you want to work out? You're big, man.
Oh, you toxic.
Like the things that's gonna make a man, don't attack those things and call it toxic. That's why I have a problem.
But I don't think it necessarily makes a man, but just things that men like to do for themselves. You know, if you enjoy going to the gym and getting big, don't just sit there acting like he got something wrong with him.
Right.
That's how you do it.
Well, I think the other side of that would be men who do those things. You know, going to the gym, growing a beard, you know, doing their thing. And I think the problem is, or you know, their contention is when you look down on other men or boys who don't those things and try to force them to be a certain kind of way.
That's toxic.
So I think that's what they're talking about.
And I think
toxic masculinity.
And I think that's initially that's what it started off as, but you know, with like everything just done with excess and just
right. That's what I was saying earlier. Like you give somebody an inch, they want to take a mile. Oh, while you at it.
So check this out. Check this out real quick.
What's up?
I just looked up what is healthy masculinity. Right. This is what it says.
There we go.
It says
We're
means.
gonna end it on that.
Check it out. It says means being honest with oneself about your own feelings, needs, and desires. It also means treating others with the kindness and respect that you deserve. So look, there's one term that I learned when I was studying psych. It's called self-actualization, right? So what this means is you are, again, going back to what I was saying before, you're so comfortable with yourself. You don't look necessarily to others to feed you unnecessarily or in a toxic way. Neither do you put on others what perhaps you should be looking to grow from or grow in or whatever the case may be. So to me, to combat whatever the issue of toxic masculinity, to combat that, it starts with you. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So if we want to change the narrative, it starts with us being the best men that we can be, and then therefore looking to be a good influence on others.
Say no more. And with that,
mic drop,
fellas. Mic drop. Right? Nothing to say after that. I mean. So thank y'all for tuning in to this episode. Again, if you have any comments, any feedback about the episode, please leave it down in the description along with anything that you want to talk to us about. Again, this is the Dog House. We talk about any and everything pertaining to manhood, fatherhood, being a husband, everything from a black man's perspective. So we're gonna see y'all in the next one though.
Peace out.
Salud.